In the summer of 2026, the World Cup returns to North America after more than 3 decades away. And this time, it arrives larger than it has ever been. 104 matches will spread across 16 host cities in 3 vast countries, turning the tournament into a 39-day journey across deserts, borders, mountains, rivers, skylines, and stadiums built for noise. But when you actually set foot on these places, the World Cup stops feeling like only a sports event. It starts to feel like a collision between billion-dollar technology and harsh ancient nature, between sharp political borders and the invisible current of history, between cities trying to look modern and landscapes that were here long before anyone built a scoreboard. That is why today, we're counting down the top 7 World Cup 2026 host cities that feel almost unreal when you look closely. Before we begin, comment which host city you think belongs at number 1, because by the end, the answer may not be the one you expect. Number 7, Dallas. Dallas rises from open plains where summer heat can sit above your head, like a punishment nobody officially announced. No dramatic ocean cliff does the work for this city. No snowy mountain range saves the skyline. Downtown doesn't have some ancient canyon waiting nearby to make the drone shot look expensive. Dallas had to build its own sense of greatness, and the city chose the most Texas method available. Money did the talking. A TNT stadium isn't subtle because subtlety never had a fair chance in Dallas. The stadium holds around 80,000 people for major events, has a retractable roof, massive steel arches, and a video board so large that a punt once hit it during a game. A story like that sounds fake anywhere else, but Dallas makes the whole thing feel almost reasonable. The building feels less like a stadium and more like a civic announcement that nobody felt like being modest that week. Giant trucks roll through wide roads. Drive-through drinks come in sizes that could hydrate a youth soccer team. Cowboy boots click across expensive floors. Around Dallas, scale isn't decoration. Scale is how the city talks before anyone opens their mouth. A TNT stadium will host a World Cup semifinal, so one of the biggest matches on Earth will happen inside a building designed to win an argument with the sky. Dallas also sits inside a deeper World Cup story that doesn't fit neatly into a stadium tour. South of Texas, the Rio Grande cuts across the landscape as both a river and an old wound. The war between the United States and Mexico from 1846 to 1848 cost Mexico roughly half its territory and turned geography into a political memory that never fully cooled down. Borders, migration, identity, and family history still follow that river today. Then football arrives and makes the whole thing more complicated in the most human way possible. South of the border, 87,000 people will roar inside the Azteca, with Mexican pride shaking the thin air. A short flight away, under the roof of AT&T Stadium, tens of thousands of Americans will stand together and sing their anthem with the same force in their chests. For 39 days, football won't erase history and won't fix politics. A ball hitting the post can still make people on opposite sides of old arguments feel the same pressure in their lungs. Dallas will give the World Cup wealth, heat, parking lots, giant screens, and confidence with no indoor voice. Behind that spectacle sits a border story much older than any stadium tour guide can cover in one paragraph. For a semifinal, that mix is almost too loud before the crowd even starts. Number 6, Guadalajara. Cross the border and move deeper into Mexico. And Guadalajara doesn't greet visitors with glass and steel first. Red earth, volcanic memory, agave fields, sauce, music, heat, and stubborn pride arrive before the skyline has a chance. Near the edge of this metro area of about 5 million people, a flat city street can suddenly give way to something much older and rougher. Barranca de Huentitan drops roughly 600 meters, a huge canyon that appears so sharply the city seems to have forgotten to warn anyone about the hole in the floor. One moment, traffic, shops, food, noise, and impatient drivers make urban life feel solid. A few steps later, the land falls into a wild silence that makes human planning look temporary. Guadalajara lives close to that break between city life and raw geography. Blue agave grows in red soil outside the city, and gemadors cut through the plants with tools that look too serious for a casual tourist photo. Markets fill with byrote bread, roasted meat, lime, chiles, and tortas ahogadas, drowned in sauce that doesn't care whether your shirt is white. Mariachi music, tequila country, Catholic festivals, family lunches, traffic, and strong opinions all sit close together here. Guadalajara's identity doesn't lower its voice for guests. Football carries that same pride through Chivas to Guadalajara. Modern football has turned into a global machine of agents, transfer rumors, sponsors, private jets, and players moving across continents before fans learn how to pronounce their names. Chivas has kept its famous tradition of fielding only Mexican players. The club would rather carry that identity through difficult seasons than quietly become another international shopping cart. For outsiders, the policy can feel almost unbelievable. For Guadalajara, the choice fits a city that treats local identity like something worth defending in public. Estadio Akron rises from a grassy mound with about 48,000 seats, and its design feels tied to the land instead of simply dropped onto it. World Cup 2026 will bring the opposite energy into that space. Different flags, languages, chants, faces, cameras, and football habits will crash into a stadium connected to one of the strongest local identities in North American sport. A fiercely local football culture will host the most global tournament on earth. A city beside a deep canyon will welcome a world that likes smooth branding, clean logistics, and easy slogans. Guadalajara probably won't soften itself for visitors. Visitors will need to catch up, listen carefully, eat carefully, and respect the sauce before the sauce teaches them first. By the time the crowd starts singing inside Estadio Akron, the whole place will feel less like a neutral venue and more like Jalisco opening the front door with a warning label. Number 5, Houston. Moving south toward the Gulf, Houston opens like a chaotic city that never waited for a planning department to approve the mood board. America's fourth largest city famously refuses traditional zoning in the usual big city sense. A church can sit near a bar. An elementary school can end up too close to industrial scenery for anyone's comfort. A taco spot can appear beside a glass office building. And half the city will judge the situation mainly by whether the food is good. Houston's map doesn't behave like a neat diagram. Freeways sprawl, neighborhoods collide, strip malls repeat, bayous cut through the mess, and the whole place keeps expanding with the confidence of a city that refuses to stay inside the lines. That disorder has made room for one of the most diverse metros in the United States. More than 145 languages are spoken across the region. Nigerian restaurants, Vietnamese bakeries, Salvadoran pupuserias, Indian grocery stores, Chinese supermarkets, barbecue joints, and gas station tacos all live inside the same giant humid organism. Rush hour may not move quickly, but culturally, those lanes are doing a lot. Gulf Coast weather remains the real opponent here. Summer temperatures can push past 35 degrees Celsius, while humidity hangs around 90% and makes every shirt regret its career choice. Step outside at noon and the air doesn't simply touch you. Hot, wet air wraps around your body like a towel nobody asked for. People move from building to truck to restaurant to office under the protection of air conditioning, almost like cold air has become a basic human right. Houston also knows water can turn dangerous fast. Hurricane Harvey dumped an estimated 1 trillion gallons of water over the region in 2017, and concrete highways and confidence didn't impress the storm. Groundwater pumping has caused parts of the region to sink over time, with some areas dropping by more than 3 meters. NRG Stadium feels like Houston's official reply to heat, humidity, and weather with bad manners. About 72,000 seats sit under a retractable roof, sealed away from the brutal air outside. Giant cooling systems create a private climate where football can happen without 70,000 people slowly turning into soup. Fans can scream, drums can pound, flags can fly, and nobody inside has to admit the parking lot feels like a steamed parking lot. For visiting supporters, the first lesson may happen before kickoff. The walk from the car to the gate can feel like crossing a wet furnace. Then the doors open. Cold air hits, and suddenly civilization feels like a thermostat. Houston will offer heat, sprawl, flood history, global food, 145 languages, sinking ground, and a stadium that politely asks nature to wait outside. A place this humid was always going to treat air conditioning like a personality trait. During the World Cup, Houston won't pretend the weather is friendly. Houston will just close the roof, crank the cold air, and keep the game moving. Number 4, Kansas City. Let the map drift toward the center of the continent, where wide plains and tall grass once covered distances so large they made human ambition look small. Kansas City sits near that misunderstood middle, a place outsiders often underrate because no beach, mountain skyline, or skyscraper drama arrives first. Most visitors correct that mistake around the time the food shows up. Barbecue smoke defines the city more directly than any slogan. Hickory, oak, slow-cooked meat, burnt ends, sauce, timing, wood type, and somebody's uncle with a strong opinion can turn dinner into a civic hearing. Around 18th and Vine, jazz history still runs through the streets. tied to names like Charlie Parker and Count Basie. Kansas City also has fountains, old neighborhoods, loyal fans, and a quiet confidence that doesn't need coastal approval. Outside the city, the Flint Hills preserve one of the last great pieces of tallgrass prairie left in North America. Tallgrass prairie once covered millions of square kilometers across the center of the continent. Today, only about 4% remains. Wind moving through tall grass can make the land ripple like a slow green sea. Though Kansas City residents would probably prefer nobody get too poetic before the burnt ends arrive. Prairie quiet makes the next part feel almost absurd. Arrowhead Stadium holds more than 76,000 fans and has become famous for crowd noise that pushes against the limits of biology. In 2014, fans at Arrowhead reached 142.2 decibels, setting a Guinness World Record for crowd roar at an outdoor stadium. A jet taking off from close range often lands around 140 decibels. Kansas City fans apparently heard aviation had a number and decided to be annoying about it. No giant speaker created that record. No industrial machine did the work. Human throats, lungs, hands, feet, and a fan base that treats silence like an away team created the whole thing. A region known for wide plains and prairie quiet contains one of the loudest sports spaces on the planet. During the tournament, a referee's whistle will enter a stadium where 76,000 people can turn emotion into pressure. No shared language will be needed. A goal, a bad call, a missed chance, and a last-minute save will translate themselves. Kansas City won't be the flashiest host city. Arrowhead doesn't care. When that crowd rises, a place many outsiders overlook becomes impossible to ignore. For World Cup players used to polished arenas and carefully managed noise, Arrowhead may feel less like a stadium and more like 76,000 people trying to physically push the ball into the net. Number 3, New York/New Jersey. The final day of the tournament lands in a place where space, power, money, history, traffic, ego, and geology crash into each other without offering an apology. MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, with about 82,500 seats, will host the 2026 World Cup final. The match will technically happen in New Jersey, but the whole planet will see New York. Manhattan will glow in the background like the world's most expensive supporting actor. At 8 a.m. near Penn Station, commuters move with the speed of people who believe eye contact wastes time. Coffee cups, headphones, backpacks, rolling bags, delayed trains, and tiny personal emergencies flow through the same tunnels and sidewalks. Subway wheels scream below the street. Steam rises from vents. Roasted nuts smell slightly burned. Someone is late, someone is famous, someone is furious, and someone is charging $19 for a sandwich with full confidence. New York represents human power better than almost any city on Earth. Towers block the sky, money moves markets, and the name alone can make a real estate listing behave badly. Researchers have estimated that New York City's buildings weigh roughly 764 million metric tons. Parts of the city are also sinking by about 1 to 2 millimeters per year, while sea levels rise around it. That fact doesn't ruin the skyline, but it does make the skyline feel less bulletproof. Across the Hudson River, the Palisades rise as basalt cliffs about 100 meters high. Those dark rock walls were formed from ancient volcanic activity around 200 million years ago. Before Manhattan, Wall Street, yellow cabs, Broadway lights, luxury condos, and apartments with suspiciously tiny kitchens, those cliffs were already standing there. On July 19, 2026, the champion will lift the World Cup trophy near this strange meeting point. Modern Manhattan will glow behind the image with glass, money, fame, and permanent self-confidence. Older stone, wetland history, New Jersey roads, crowded trains, and a river that has watched every version of human importance come and go will surround the moment. Sports glory lasts for seconds before the next headline starts chewing on it. Geology doesn't rush. The world's biggest sporting moment will happen beside a city that often talks like forever belongs to it, while rocks old enough to embarrass every empire stand nearby without saying a word. MetLife doesn't need to be romantic in the old stadium way. Location does the heavy lifting. When billions of people watch the trophy rise, Manhattan will sit behind it like a promise, a warning, and a real estate brochure that somehow learned how to glow. Number 2, Los Angeles. Fly west and Los Angeles appears as the capital of beautiful illusions, bright ambition, and confidence polished enough to survive traffic on the 405. People come here to become someone else. Actors from Iowa, musicians from Tennessee, chefs from Mexico, programmers from India, influencers from places nobody asked about, and dreamers from everywhere carry the same quiet thought into the city. Maybe this place can turn me into the person I was supposed to be. Los Angeles has no single center. Or maybe the city has so many centers that the whole idea gives up. Koreatown, Boyle Heights, Hollywood, Santa Monica, Inglewood, the Valley, Downtown, Pasadena, and South LA all each move with their own rhythm. More than 140 languages are spoken across the region. Palm trees, smog, freeways, hills, billboards, ocean light, studio lots, food trucks, luxury cars, and exhausted assistants share the same enormous stage. SoFi Stadium captures the fantasy in one building. The stadium cost around $5.5 billion, making it one of the most expensive sports venues ever built. Regular events seat around 70,000 people with room to expand for bigger crowds. Above the field hangs a giant oval LED board that feels less like a screen and more like a floating electronic eye watching every bad defensive decision. SoFi looks like a spaceship that landed in Inglewood and immediately asked about premium suites. Outside the city, nature starts making that price tag look younger than it wants to feel. A few hours away, Death Valley drops to 86 meters below sea level and has recorded 56.7 degrees Celsius at Furnace Creek, one of the highest reliably measured air temperatures on Earth. In another direction, Sequoia National Park holds General Sherman, the largest known living single-stem tree by volume. General Sherman stands about 84 meters tall, with a base circumference over 31 meters, and is estimated to be around 2,700 years old. When the Roman Empire was still young, that tree was already alive and doing absolutely nothing for social media engagement. Los Angeles sits between extreme heat, ancient life, earthquake risk, water pressure, wildfire smoke, ocean glamour, and entertainment money. San Andreas remains California's famous seismic threat in the background. Southern California also depends heavily on engineered water systems to support life in a dry region. SoFi answers pressure with engineering, spectacle, and a roofline ready for a science fiction sequel. A billion-dollar football palace standing between 2,700-year-old trees and 56.7-degree desert heat reminds visitors how impressive human greatness can look while still being very young. Los Angeles knows how to sell a dream better than almost anywhere. Nature nearby has been outlasting productions long before anyone paid for parking in Inglewood. During the World Cup, SoFi will look perfect on television. The roof, lights, screen, crowd, and California glow will all do their job. A few hours away, the desert will still be hot enough to humble anything with a pulse, and General Sherman will still be standing there, quietly ignoring another human spectacle. Number 1. Mexico City. The real origin point of this football religion sits farther south, where Mexico City rises as both an urban miracle and a slow-motion warning. More than 22 million people live in a metro area built over the remains of the Aztec capital Tenochtitlan and the drained bed of Lake Texcoco. Spanish conquerors destroyed the old city in the 16th century, drained the lake, and built a new capital over ruins, mud, water memory, and history that never really left. Centuries later, the ground still argues with that decision. Some neighborhoods have sunk more than 10 meters over time. Soft lakebed soil and groundwater extraction keep pulling parts of the city downward at startling rates. Residents don't need a lecture to understand the problem. Cracked walls, tilted churches, uneven floors, and streets that seem to be slowly losing patience make the point every day. Nighttime Mexico City doesn't feel like a dying place. The whistle of the camatero cuts through traffic. Street food smoke rises from charcoal, masa, roasted corn, salsa, exhaust, rain, music, voices, and heat mix into air that feels crowded before you even start counting people. Above the city, Popocatépetl rises to 5,426 meters, an active volcano closely watched for decades and mythologized for far longer. Mexico City lives with sinking ground below and a smoking giant on the horizon. Altitude adds the invisible weapon. The city sits about 2,240 meters above sea level. Visiting players can feel that height fast, especially once a normal sprint turns into a private negotiation with their lungs. A superstar worth $100 million can step onto the pitch and discover oxygen doesn't care about transfer fees. The Estadio Azteca holds the center of this feeling. No new stadium, luxury roof, giant screen, or $5.5 billion construction budget can buy what Azteca already has. Pelé lifted the 1970 World Cup there. Diego Maradona scored both the Hand of God and the goal of the century there in 1986. On June 11, 2026, Azteca will become the first stadium in history to open a World Cup for the third time. The renovated venue is expected to hold around 87,000 people, and that crowd won't sound like a polite audience. Mexican football fans bring songs, jokes, impatience, rhythm, pressure, and national pride with real weight behind it. When 87,000 voices rise in thin air above a sinking city built over an ancient lake, the match won't feel like normal entertainment. Football will be stepping into history's loudest room. Mexico City has ruins under its streets, volcanoes in the distance, altitude in every breath, and football ghosts already living in the grass. No other host city carries that combination. World Cup 2026 may stretch across 3 countries, 16 cities, and 104 matches, but its strongest opening note belongs here. When the whistle blows at Azteca, the world won't just be watching a match. The world will be listening to a city introduce itself through noise, memory, danger, pride, and one very stubborn ball. Dallas brings giant screens, Texas heat, a semifinal, and an old border story sitting behind the shine. Guadalajara brings red soil, Chivas pride, canyon walls, and a local identity strong enough to push back against the most global event in sports. Houston brings humidity, flood history, sinking ground, 145 languages, and a cold indoor world built under a roof. Kansas City brings barbecue smoke, prairie quiet, and 76,000 lungs loud enough to make a jet engine sound less special. New York and New Jersey bring the final, the skyline, 82,500 seats, sinking buildings, and 200-million-year-old cliffs watching from across the river. Los Angeles brings a $5.5 billion stadium, desert heat, earthquake risk, imported water, and trees older than empires. Mexico City brings thin air, volcano smoke, Aztec memory, sinking ground, and football history no one can fake. Comment which host city feels the most unreal to you. Subscribe if you want more countdowns where the map gets weird. I'll see you in the next one.